one of my subscribers asked me a couple of weeks ago, I believe, it might be a month ago, I don't know, I don't recall. I'm gonna see if I can find the comment for y'all. She wanted me to do a beginner's guide for dark romance. Now, I do consider myself a mood reader because I read just about anything. It just really depends on the vibe that I'm currently in, but I mostly gravitate towards dark romance. There are some people that kind of want to dip their big toe in the dark romance waters, but they're a little scared, you know? So I'm gonna help y'all out. Music. Hey y'all, happy sunrise and welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, if you enjoy the vibes, please y'all go ahead and subscribe with your girl. Understand that it is a little bit chaotic on this channel. We do a little bit of everything because at the end of the day, I got ADHD. So there is no real niche. However, we do talk all things spirituality, all things books, and then whatever it is I feel like getting into whenever I get into it. First thing first, where a lot of y'all mess up when it comes to dark romance is nose diving head first into the heavy dark romance genres. You can't do that, baby. You can't do that. Like, let's be smart about this. Let's be smart about this. When you're getting into dark romance, you don't want to start off with things like the Lord series by Chantel Tessier or the Cat and Mouse Duet by H.D. Carlton. You want to stay away from the Jesse Halls. And there's no shade to these particular authors because they're some of my favorite dark romance authors. However, they write heavy dark romance shit, okay? And if you're a newbie at this, those aren't the authors that you want to nosedive into first. I know it's, you know, you're curious, you might be excited, or you might see all the hype with all the other dark romance girlies talking about these particular books. You don't want to start with those. Another thing, if you're not somebody that enjoys dark romance, this genre just may not be for you, you know? And that's okay. I do realize a lot of people that are more into like the fluffy romances and things of that nature, if they read a dark romance book, they hate it. They hate it because they can't relate, you know? And although these are fictional characters, it's not so much about relating, but because they're more into the fluff and the slow burns and love at first sight and things like that, they're not really looking into, you know, these stalker romances and, you know, you come home and I'm sitting on your couch type thing. Like, they're not into that. So naturally, a lot of people would immediately out the gate hate a dark romance book if that's not the genre that they relate to or they connect to. And baby, that's okay. Everybody got their own lane. You find your lane, you stay in your lane. I promise nobody's mad about it. Nobody's hating off of that. Nobody's judging, okay? But if you are curious and you kind of want to get into dark romance just to see kind of, you know, what it's about and if it's something that you could possibly get into, I got you covered. I currently have 7 book recommendations that I personally think is a little lighter on the dark romance spectrum that some of y'all might be able to get into and enjoy. So we're gonna go through each one of these one by one. I'll give y'all a quick synopsis. Of course, it's not gonna be any spoilers. I'll give y'all a quick synopsis, a quick review about each one of these books, how I felt about them, what I rated them, and hopefully I can get some of y'all intrigued. The first book that I'm gonna talk about comes from the Never After series. I actually did a reading vlog on this if you wanna go watch it. It's a pretty funny vlog, okay? And I'm not just saying that because it's me. It's a pretty funny vlog. But this particular vlog consists of, well, right now it consists of 6 books because the final book just came out. But I'm going to talk about 2 in particular that I feel is a little bit lighter on the dark romance spectrum that y'all might be able to vibe with. Scarred is a dark royal romance, okay? And it is a fractured retelling, so it's not an exact retelling of this childhood movie, which is Lion King, okay? But it's a fractured retelling. In this one is basically the villains getting the girls, okay? So you kind of get the background of the villain, quote unquote villain, and why they are the way that they are, how they got this way, and you grow to like or love the villain because you see the way that they may have been treated and how they, you know, how life was going for them and how, you know, they became who they were, so on and so forth. So you kind of start rooting for the underdog. You see what I'm saying? And in this book, Tristan was most definitely the underdog. Tristan would be depicted as scarred, whereas his brother Michael would be depicted as Mufasa. And Mufasa just ain't shit. I'll just say that, okay? In this story, Mufasa ain't worth a goddamn. This follows Tristan, which is our MMC in this book, and Sarah, which is our FMC in this book. Tristan is royal, clearly. He's the brother to Michael. Both of them are princes. Their father has passed, so now being that Michael is the oldest, he is set to take the throne. Tristan is set to steal the throne. He is gung-ho about taking this throne away from his brother, and rightfully so. Sarah, on the other hand, has her family is beefed out with this royal bloodline for whatever reason, but she is forced to marry into this royal family. So she's set to marry Michael. But what they don't know is, although she's coming into this kingdom to marry Michael, she's also set here to try to wipe out the entire family bloodline, the royal bloodline, if you will. This is more of a rivals to lovers type of book. It's a slow burn. There is spice in here, but the spice ain't coming until probably like 70% into the chapter, which I'm not really mad at. It allowed the story to build up, right? So there's a lot of tension, a lot of angst, and all of the things, y'all. I enjoyed this book so much, and being that it is a fractured retelling, it was fun depicting what characters are like spin-offs of the characters in the movie, you know? So I highly suggest reading this one. Although it pulls you in the very beginning, it's kind of slow, but not slow like boring slow, just slow as in like you gotta give, the story has to build, you know? They gotta set the scene, they gotta set the plot, you gotta set the timeline, you gotta understand what's going on, especially because it's a royal family. You gotta understand the ins and outs of what's going on as far as the kingdom and stuff like that is concerned before you can really and truly connect with everything that's transpiring, okay? So I highly suggest Scarred if you've never read it. If you're wanting to get into dark romance, this is like mild dark romance. The next one that I have comes from the same exact series, and this is Wretched by Emily McIntyre as well. I stand for Wretched, y'all. I love this book so much. Now granted, I love Scarred just as much, okay? But it's something about reading books where the woman is a badass, where the woman is the one that's pulling the strings, where the woman is the one that's making these men bow down. I ate this book up. Now, Wretched is actually a fractured retelling of Wizard of Oz, okay? So you have Evelina, we call her Evie for short, and ironically enough, her sister's name is actually Dorothy in this book. And let's just say Dorothy she is the wicked witch that they try to pin Evelina out to be. Let's just put it that way. Like I said, it's a complete 180 where the bad guys are depicted as the black sheep or the underdog, and the heroes are really the assholes. It follows Evie and Nicholas. Nicholas is the MMC in this particular storyline. Nicholas is in the DEA, okay? And Evie is a part of a big ass drug ring. Nicholas is basically going undercover to get inside of this family, you know, dynamic so he can bring down this drug ring, right? And as you can see, he's going to end up falling for Evie. Evie's going to end up falling for him. And you only can imagine what's going to transpire from that storyline, okay? All of this is on the blurb, so no spoilers. One thing I love about Emily McIntyre's writing is it's very fast-paced, very easy to read, and she is very just so witty with the way that she uses the terminology throughout all of the books in this series. The way that she kind of correlates different things from the movies and use different scenarios from the movies in the actual book, and how she compares the characters to particular characters in the movies as well. It's just so well written, and I feel like this is a really good mild dark romance book for those that are just now starting this genre. Both of these are not necessarily dark romances per se. They're more along the lines of light gray, okay? So I would definitely suggest getting into one of these or just tapping into the Never After series as a whole just to get your feet wet. I actually just read this book in October. This was a part of my spooky season TBR. This one is Blood Orange by Karina. I think her last name is Howe. This is considered a dark romance, but it's more of like a dark gothic academia fantasy type of vibe. So if you're into that, this could be a thing for you. Now this one follows witches and fays and vampires and things like that, but it is still considered a dark romance because it is a romance between a vampire and a mortal. This is actually a Dracula retelling, and when I tell y'all, I ate this up, okay? This is the first book and it is a part of a duet. Dracula basically falls head over heels with Dahlia, okay? And this was during a time frame where they were forbidden to be together. She came from a royal family. He was basically a nobody, okay? They fell for each other. They were having this affair. Can we really call it an affair? They weren't in a relationship with anybody else, but they had this little secret fling and they just was loving each other. Again, no spoilers, y'all, because everything I'm getting ready to tell you is on the blurb. They end up getting discovered and she is brutally unalived in front of him. Ironically enough, while this is happening, this is the same time frame that he is transitioning from a human to a vampire. He wasn't a vampire when they first met. He wasn't a vampire when they was messing around. But whenever they turn a certain age, I think it was like 25 or 35, something, I don't remember, y'all. Somewhere up in the ages. Once they hit a certain age is when the transition happens. And it's just ironic that the day that he was losing the love of his life, while he was watching all of this take place, he was also in the midst of transitioning into a vampire. They have a second chance at love again because now she's reincarnated, but she's in a different form. So this book basically is a forbidden love, but also fated love at the same time, because it's clear throughout the book that they're fated to be together, but for whatever reason, the forces have just been against them since the beginning of time. It's a very interesting read. The way that she wrote this book was like, it's just genius. Is like very historical, because again, Dracula has been written how many years ago? So it's very historical. It's a lot of talk about art and all type of things like that. It takes place in Venice. So of course, you know, just the history in Venice alone is just beautiful. But I love that she did a play off of like old time stuff and also modern day. So it's a nice mix between the two. This was so good. And then especially if you're like into the spiritual aspect of things with the reincarnation, the soul ties, the twin flames and soulmates and things of that nature. And then of course the fantasy undertone, because there's witches and vampires and fae and magic and all of those things like that. This is a really good book to get into. Now, we'll be completely honest, that first chapter, I think is either the prologue or the very first chapter. Everything that I told you that's in the prologue, it does play that out, but in detail, okay? So if you're not a person that can handle, you know, it's not necessarily gory per se, but reading it is just like, oh my God, you know, it wouldn't be no different from watching a movie where something crazy happening where somebody's getting unalived or whatever the case may be. It's no difference. But for some people, that's not your cup of tea. You don't want to read that in your books. That's fine. But for those that would be interested in this type of storyline, this will be the way to go. If you do enjoy this, definitely make sure you pick up the second book in the series, which is Black Rose, okay? So it's just a duet. It's just this one and Black Rose. Loved this book, y'all. Loved this book. I definitely gave this 5 stars. We're going to move on to our 4th book. And this one, I'm pretty sure y'all have seen around TikTok, around YouTube. It's a very talked about book, okay, on all of these platforms. The book that I'm talking about is Butcher and Blackbird. Now, this one is a friends to lovers type of book. It's dark romance, but it's comedy. It's funny. There's a lot of chemistry between the two. There is chaos going on all around them, and they just have this dark humor. And if you're somebody like me, I enjoy dark humor. There were a lot of times where I laughed throughout this book, I'm not gonna lie to you. I would suggest, if you're a person that likes to listen to audibles, definitely listen to it and read it at the same time. It does make the experience that much better, because I feel like those that did the narrating on this book did a beautiful job, okay? But the book is dual POV and so is the audible, so it switches back between a male's voice and a female's voice, and I love that. This follows Sloane and Rowan. Both of them are serial killers. They're both serial killers that kill serial killers. They're like the vigilantes, if you will. So yes, they also commit the unalivings, but they're basically cleansing the world of people that are doing it for shits and giggles, right? In their head, they're cleansing the earth of the evil people. Somewhere along the line, they start to turn this into a competition to see who can get to their target before the other person does. And then whoever gets to them, they're the person that gets to do the unaliving and things like that. So it's not super duper gory, but I mean, we're talking about unaliving. So of course, that's kind of what you're going to be reading. But the romance in this it's funny. It's funny, it's entertaining. And I like the play on adding comedy to something that's meant to be very dark. This too, I would consider a slow burn, because although there was a lot of angst between both of our characters, it took them a minute to finally like make that connection for real. Like, it was clear, I like you, you like me, but they were, you know, it just took a minute. The author wanted it to be a slow burn. So there is some spicy scenes in here. But if you're not a huge fan of spice, it's not a lot, because like I said, it's a slow burn. So it takes some time before they even get to that point. They're building a bond, okay? As if they aren't already building a bond doing what they're doing. This book was a good time. I'm not gonna lie to you. I personally rated this book a 3.5. It's not because I thought the book was bad. I just thought it was overhyped, because when I went into it, I was expecting the bells and whistles. And I feel like, you know, usually when a book is super duper overhyped, you have high expectations for it. And although it was good and I had a good time, it just didn't meet the expectations that I thought it was going to meet due to all of the hype that I saw surrounding the book. But don't let that deter you from reading it, because if you are new in this genre, I feel like this will be a perfect place to start for you. Which brings me to my next two books, and these are actually a part of a duet as well. I am referring to The Sinner's Duet by Sophie Lark. The first one is There Are No Saints, and the second one is There Is No Devil. Now, this duet was really fast-paced, really easy to read, and she also does illustrations in her books, which I think is absolutely adorable. You see, look at that. And I think she does this in all of her books, so I think that's actually pretty cool. The Sinner's Duet follows the same characters, okay? In the first one, you have Cole Blackwell, and he's a very successful artist, okay? He has the money, he makes these big sculptures and things like that. And then you also have Mara, and Mara is an up-and-coming artist, okay? So she's also very good at what she does, but she's not as well known. She doesn't have a lot of recognition, but she's, you know, trying to get her name out there. Now, there's also another character in this book by the name of Alistair, and Alistair and Cole are basically rivals in the art community. They're always going toe for toe to see who's the best. Now, the underlying tone of this book is both Cole and both Alistair are serial killers, okay? The difference between the two, Alistair is a little, he be doing it just because, you know? Cole, on the other hand, is more of like what you would consider the vigilante, the gray area. Although he does these things, he only goes after people that he feels deserves it. Basically, they're in the midst of this rivalry, and Alistair happens to see that Cole is kind of fixated on Mara. So now he's trying to go after Mara and set up a trap when it comes to Mara and Cole. It kind of sort of backfires, but not really, because Cole ends up being super fixated on Mara and he starts stalking her a bit. So yes, this is a stalker romance, y'all, but it's not, it's like I said, it's a gray area. It's not a pitch black dark romance. It's like a gray, a morally gray dark romance. The banter between These two, also funny. So they're not enemies to lovers or rivals to lovers, but there's angst, and we love angst in books. We love the tension between characters in books. So in this book, it pretty much gives you their beginning stages of how everything is happening, and there's also a major plot and also plot twist within this book. So I'm not going to tell you too much outside of what I just told you based on the blurb. And then it brings us over to the second book, and the second book is basically picking up where we left off with the first one. I'm not even going to say anything about this one because I don't want to give it away. Just know once you read this one, you have to read this one. Okay, I really enjoyed this one the most, although this one was like the buildup of the world and the characters and things like this. I really enjoyed this one because it gave us more background on both of the characters, and we also got to see the character development for both of them, Mara and Cole, in this book. And I'm a big person, I'm a sucker for character development. Okay, that's one reason why I love reading dark romances, because I love seeing them come from the bottom or come from the trauma and hurt and the pain and watch them grow and flourish into a better version of themselves. And we get to see that in the second book with both Cole and Mara. I definitely do recommend this if you can handle a little stalker romance, just a little stalking. It ain't that bad. Last but not least, I actually read this one over the October spooky season time as well, and this has become one of my favorite books of all time. The books that I'm talking about is Lights Out by Nevessa Allen. Okay, this too is also a stalker romance, y'all, but it is hilarious, y'all. This book is everything that I wanted Butcher and Blackbird to be. Now, I still suggest reading Butcher and Blackbird, okay, if you're still trying to get your feet wet, but I highly suggest reading Lights Out. If you enjoyed Butcher and Blackbird, or even if you hated Butcher and Blackbird, I think this one would definitely tickle your fancy. I also listened to this on the Audible as well, and I highly suggest listening to the Audible if you want to get into Lights Out. You don't even got to read the book, y'all. I'm not saying don't read the book. Definitely read the book if you have the book, or read the book if you want to get the book. But the Audible was chef's kiss. I listened to the Audible, and after I listened to that, I had to get the book as a trophy because that's how good the Audible was. It's also dual POV and hilarious. The comedy in this book, the way that they narrated this book was just so funny. I also find it hilarious because Josh is our MMC, and although he's the stalker and masked man or whatever, he is such a golden retriever. He is such a golden retriever. And then you have Allie, who she has kinks, she likes the mask kinks and things. She's into a little spice. She's tired of like vanilla. You catch my drift. She's tired of the vanilla stuff, and she kind of wants to spice things up a bit. And she just finds herself on TikTok, and she's watching all of these masked men and things of that nature or whatever. And that's how she runs into Josh, okay? And Josh starts stalking her. Now, the funny thing about it is, like, he's stalking her, and then also, like, I have to get you a security system because it should not have been that easy for me to get inside your house. I'm ordering you a security system, and I'm gonna have it installed. Sir, you broke into my house. What do you mean? So it's like he's doing all of these weird, creepy things while also trying to protect her in the process. It's just, Josh was hilarious, y'all, and so was Allie. If y'all don't take nothing else from any of these other books that I showed y'all, please get into this, okay? If you're disappointed in this, I will literally be shocked by that because this book is really that good. To say this is a dark romance, I laughed so much reading this book, y'all. No exaggeration. I enjoyed this book so much, and I'm definitely going to reread it. Now that I have it, the physical copy, I'm definitely going to reread it. These are all my gray area dark romance books that I would suggest you guys get into if you're new to this genre. And if you decide to read any of these, please let me know. Y'all spin the block, drop it in the comments. Let me know if you read any of these, if you're going to read any of these, what your thoughts are. If you do decide to read any of these and you get through it, let me know, okay? And if you enjoyed this video, let me know that too. If you want more videos like this, if you need other recommendations as far as fantasy is concerned, self-help, contemporary, let me know. Okay, I would love to do more beginner guides for y'all. Love y'all so very much. I will catch you in the next video. And again, don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy the vibes. All right, happy reading. Bye.